There's an election coming up.
Yeah.
And we really already had the full conversation. The idea I was posing to Charlie, I saw this online.
In
so
the
I was
group.
just posing it to Charlie and the live group, was would you rather have, this is a would you rather, okay? You get 4 years of Donald Trump starting in 2024, and then you get 8 years of Gavin Newsom after that as a reaction to Donald Trump. Or would you rather get 4 more years of Joe Biden / like 3 years of Kamala Harris probably during that time, and then have 8 years of a Republican like Ron DeSantis or something like that afterwards as a reaction to how upset everyone is? They already hate Biden. I would assume they would hate him even more after that. So maybe you swing back to a Republican afterwards.
Yeah.
And so
I mean, my first choice would be neither.
Neither one of those. You don't like that false choice.
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how about a libertarian president for the next 100 years?
My thing is you don't know that you have to do, well, let's say have to. Basically, you have to bank on what the short term is because you have no idea who was even going to run for president in 4 years, so 2028.
I got you.
And even if they were to run, could they even beat someone like Gavin Newsom or whoever else the left puts up?
I got you.
And by then, maybe it all has crumbled anyway, and we're reinstituting liberty.
Mm-hmm. By then we're like, what's a president? Never even heard of that before. We have a supreme leader.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Iran, they have a supreme leader, but they also have a president too. They had a president. He died in a helicopter crash, and they had a big old Kobe foggy mess out there, and a helicopter went down, and he's dead. All right, that was the big news over the weekend. That's basically it.
If you learn something, helicopters are pretty dangerous.
Yeah, those are, they need to have like sideways ejection seats for helicopters or something like that.
You can't go
not up. You can't go up, but like maybe sideways.
Oh, maybe if they time it just right, you know, you can slip through the blades
perfectly. Yeah. I mean, you used to have
I could engineer something like that.
Sure. I mean, you used to have planes that would shoot through the propellers, you know? So, I mean, yeah, you could totally do that.
Why not?
Anyhow, that was that piece of news. The guy sucked anyway. And my guess is most of the people on the helicopter with him did too, although I won't, the pilots, well, they suck at piloting helicopters, but I don't know how they were as people. And they could have been good people with families and stuff like that. So I don't want to make fun of their deaths or anything. But this dude sucked. But they have a supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, and he pretty much calls the shots anyway. So it's not like Iran's fallen into complete disarray and World War III is starting because this went down or anything.
And what he had to say about this crash is that he wants the election of a new president within 50 days.
That's what he had to say.
Yeah.
He wants a new one. And so they're going to elect a new president. And that is the news about Iran. That's all we have. I successfully called it Iran and Iran during that conversation.
Surely we know, we could speculate the CIA is possibly behind this. Maybe Israel, the IDF.
It's either one of those two.
Some MI6 agents, possibly.
Probably Ukraine.
They're the ones.
I bet.
The Britons are the ones who initially, installed the Shah with the CIA's help. They kind of duped America back in the day. That's a conspiracy theory that came true.
Have you decided
How about that?
It could be also Vladimir Putin possibly that did this whole thing. Although I guess they're friends, so we have to go back to it was Zelensky that did it / working with Israel and the CIA.
Yeah,
and Mossad. So
and somehow Putin. Russian spies were seen exiting the forest.
Probably.
In this province.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah.
You know what else you heard here?
Have you heard the whole story about how the United States instituted the Shah in Iran in the 50s?
I've heard it, yeah. I've heard it. It's not good.
Did you realize that British Petroleum they were controlling the oil fields in Iran, and they were only paying the Iranian government 18% of the profits, and they took a tax out of that, by the way.
Huh.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that.
So underneath the CIA, it was really the MI6, the British MI6 operation, kind of asking the United States for help on this, and then
was it all for oil?
Initially, yeah. So when the initial coup didn't work, the United States basically was like, hey, they didn't show up. This coup is not really working. And so
I hate it when your coups don't work.
So the MI6 guys were like, well, that's not acceptable. And so they were able to like grab the American spies back in the game, even though it wasn't necessarily signed off on by the president.
Huh.
And yeah, it's the deeper you go, the more interesting it gets. And this was all a conspiracy theory until they released the files.
Everything's a conspiracy theory.
8 years ago or something like that.
Okay, this is President Biden talking about how...
So basically the British in America killed this president. Is what I'm trying to get at.
I agree.
Yeah, no matter which way you spin.
It was their fault.
The helicopter. No matter which way you spin it.
Biden...
Give us this day our daily...
Says, when I was vice president during the pandemic... So let's hear him mess up real quick, and then we'll get to the actual Biden clip we want to talk about today.
And when I was vice president, things were kind of bad during the pandemic. And what happened was Barack said to me, go to Detroit and help fix it. Well, poor mayor, he spent more time with me than he ever thought he was going to have to. God love you.
All right. There's the rundown.
Never have to.
There's the rundown from the president. When he was vice president, things were pretty bad with the pandemic, as everyone can remember.
Okay, let's give him some credit. Okay, during the pandemic, he was probably still called, Mr. Vice President, because he holds the title.
All right, there you go.
He holds the title.
Fair and balanced. Fair and balanced.
Now he'll be called president, no matter what.
I got you.
So I can see how that can be confusing to a senile, geriatric man.
Okay.
It's understandable.
I got you.
I'm not saying it's right.
Completely understandable.
It's just understandable.
For sure. He should get elected and serve another 4 years as president, I bet. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay, the
pandemic's pretty bad, though.
The main topic of conversation.
Did he go to Detroit during the pandemic?
Fixed it, yeah. Huh. It was in bad shape.
At the behest of Barack Hussein Obama?
Yeah, Obama sent him over there. He spent a lot of time with the mayor of Detroit. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you, Joe Biden, for your service. How about this commencement address speaking? I think he was at one of those HBCUs, pretty sure. So he's speaking to what I mean is a lot of black graduates. Okay, so that's important for this clip, and we're going to.
Did he tell black women that their greatest achievement in life will be the fact that they could be a wife and a mother?
A single one.
A single one. Oh, that was good.
Okay, here we go, Biden.
We're getting canceled again.
Today. You missed your high school graduation. You started college just as George Floyd was murdered. And there was a reckoning on race. It's natural to wonder if democracy you hear about actually works for you. What is democracy? If black men are being killed in the street, what is democracy? The trail of broken promises still leave black communities behind. What is democracy? You have to be 10 times better than anyone else to get a fair shot. And most of all, what does it mean, as we've heard before, to be a black man who loves his country, even if it doesn't love him back in equal measure?
Okay. Kind of killing the mood.
You have to work 10 times as hard. Isn't that what college is all about for anyone?
I don't know.
You're at a higher level institution to work harder
than many other people do. Yeah.
People that don't go there.
Like you.
Yeah. So that they can maybe be better prepared to get a job or start a career that's going to earn more money.
The caption on this says, imagine working hard for years to graduate from a college and Joe Biden shows up on your day of celebration to remind you that you're a victim and America doesn't love you because you're black.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that really is the worst part of this whole thing. Like you're going to, these people are graduating.
You did it.
Congrats.
Yeah.
You're screwed.
Yeah.
Give up.
America hates you.
Give up. You're not doing anything unless I vote to give you more money or I decide to give you more money.
He also mentioned the trail of broken promises. You know, one promise that this guy followed through on was putting black men in jail.
He did. He was great
He
at
followed
that.
through on that
Yeah.
promise for sure.
That was one of his promises.
Yeah, 32 years ago.
That was followed through on.
Mm-hmm.
I took issue with, so I saw some other people taking issue with this idea of what's democracy if black men are getting gunned down in the street? And he mentions that right after talking about George Floyd getting murdered. And I was trying to figure out what the heck he's talking about. And I think we're still doing this thing where it's dangerous to be a black person in America because you're just going to go somewhere and it's going to be like if you were to choose between a police officer and a bear, you would choose the bear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just dangerous for you to go on the street because it's, because you're a
I
black
like to
person
call bears dogs.
walking around.
Pet that dog.
So I wanted to look at some stats on this because that's what I saw a lot of people focus in on. And let me get to the stats right quick. Now, we've all seen this one. We've talked about this one before. This is from the FBI, and they're talking about murder statistics. And it's from the year 2019, unfortunately, because that's the last year that the FBI made this data this available, probably because of the response that followed from seeing these numbers, more than likely.
No, it's just underreported.
So they looked directly at the victims of murder, and then they looked at the offenders of the murder. And so remember, we're talking about this idea that it's just dangerous to be a black person in America. Now, blacks are murdered at a higher rate in proportion to the population size than white people are.
But they seem to be doing it to themselves.
Yeah, so it's not out of, because we're talking about George Floyd, we're talking about racism, we're talking about people having to work 10 times as hard to get the same thing. And we're talking about a trail of broken promises and, of course, our systemically racist system that we have. And he's there to tell a room full of graduates about all of these things, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes down to the race part of the situation, you see that 88% of the blacks that were murdered were killed by black people. And you see that 78% of the whites that were murdered were killed by white people. You see that 17% of the whites that were murdered were killed by black people, and you see that 8% of blacks that were murdered were killed by white people. And so I don't look at these stats and think, wow, look at the crazy systemic racism when it comes to murder. But maybe he's not talking about the violence that plagues our cities. He's talking about George Floyd, right? So you must be talking about police-related killings.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Police brutality.
And so he's probably talking about police. And I found this really cool set of data from the Washington Post. And I think it's cool to find out statistics like this. First off, they collect all of this information from the year 2015. And you can look at, they've got 9,654 people killed in police shootings since 2015. And they keep this data pretty up to date. But I wanted to look at the most recent year that we had a full year's worth of data. So 2023.
Or you're cherry picking now. Yeah.
Just wanted to look at the most recent year.
Sure.
1,161 victims in police shootings. Okay. Now that's actually the highest amount. This is something that, maybe we would say would be going down. Although I don't know, the population is going up. So you want to look at it as a statistic, as a portion of the population, actually. But when you look at all the other years, you see that 2023 is the most amount of people killed in police shootings. But we don't care about that. We care, obviously, the problem is that black people are getting killed by cops, right? So you could narrow that down and say black. You'd say 235 of those 1,100 were black people killed by cops, which is probably not the number that most people would guess. When you go to white, you'd see 448 people. White people were killed by cops.
Mm.
But you don't just want to know that. What you really want to know is how many unarmed people were killed by cops. Because there's, I would say, much, much less to rarely justification. Not saying there's never been a justification, but rarely a justification for killing an unarmed person. Like, are you really, is there really a threat to your life? There could be. There absolutely could be, okay? But what about unarmed people? Also, by the way, the other thing you got to remember is that armed doesn't necessarily mean that you were dangerous either. you could be able to carry a gun, as we believe people should be allowed to do. And so just the fact that you were armed doesn't mean that you posed a dangerous threat to the cop. Okay. But that's about the best way that we could try and separate this out. So what if we select unarmed out of these 1,100? You see that there are 51 of the 1,100 people were unarmed people killed by cops. And then when you select black, you would see that there were 16 unarmed black people killed by cops. How about unarmed black men? It's 16. They were all men. Just so we know that. And you get rid of black, you look at white, and it was 16 also. So same amount of people for either white or black.
Now, that could be disproportionate considering black people are only 13% of the population.
It is disproportionate. It is. But then you got to look at actual instances and altercations with police officers.
Oh, are you saying we have to judge each incident?
Every single
separately?
incident, yeah, would need to be judged separately.
Isn't that weird?
And this is I'm going to put a link to this for anyone who's interested in going even further into the details, because it's pretty good. When you select like black right here, it gives you a news story for each one of the killings. So you can go in and look at the details. So that's pretty cool if you want to actually dig into each one of these numbers. But once again, are we really fitting into this narrative that you got to go to a commencement ceremony at a college and tell the black people there that they're screwed? And that how do we have democracy when black people are, getting killed in the streets right after you mentioned George Floyd? So maybe that means it's tied into police brutality, of course. And that you got to work 10 times as hard, and that there's broken promises and all that. It's a really sick thing to tell a group of people that are supposed to be having a good day, where they're getting congratulated for all their great work. So I don't see the numbers backing up the narrative is the problem that I have there. Now, Biden has to go and do this sort of thing because he's doing so freaking terrible in the polls right now. There's an election coming. Did we talk about that?
Oh, yeah.
There's an election coming up?
Yeah, 2024.
I wanted to show this to everyone. Watch this. National Trump is up 1.8%. Now, the national doesn't really matter. What really matters are swing states. This
is where swingers live?
Yeah.
Is what you're saying?
There's a large group
Pineapple
of states that aren't swing states.
Okay.
And then there's a small amount of states that are going to go either way. Okay. Arizona, Trump's up. This is an average of the last 5 polls. Arizona's Trump is up 3.4. Florida, not really a swing state, I would say anymore, 9%. Minnesota, Biden's up 2%. Trump's up 6% in Georgia.
Who is the gray? Now, is that RFK or is that just undecided?
I'm not sure which one that is.
Okay.
I don't know. That could... actually, I should have looked at that. It would be interesting to know if that's RFK. Michigan, you got Trump up by 2. Nevada, Trump up by 7. North Carolina, Trump up by 5.8. Pennsylvania, Trump's up by 2.8. Wisconsin, Biden is up by 0.2% right now. So by the way, if these polls were correct and the election were held today, Trump would have 302 electoral votes to Biden's 236. That's dangerous. And the biggest thing is the economy. It's always the economy. Okay.
It's what affects people every single day.
Everyone. You can't do anything.
This is what we talk about on the show.
The economy affecting you.
We talk about economics being the most important thing on the show, and that's because it is.
And
it literally decides whether people live or die, or like what quality of life you're going to have. If you do live, like economics and bad economic policy is what hurts the most amount of people.
Yeah. I mean, literally, it's the most important thing. And then even when you poll people, they tell you it's the most important thing. But it's something, I don't know, it's like boring to talk about or whatever, but it's literally the most important thing. Everyone's economic policies are the most important policies.
Well, because people don't want to think about how they get their food and stuff nowadays. Everything is just there for them. I go to the gas station, they got gas. And pump my gas, I can drive my car around. Or I go to one of the 7, charging stations the government has instituted, and it charges my my Tesla, right?
Thank God they got those.
I go to the grocery store, the food's there. It's too much to think about all the logistics behind loading trucks and unloading trucks and keeping food from being perishable, and how the farmers farm it and who's trading what for this and that. That's all too much to think about.
You know,
so
Biden,
economics becomes, I don't know that it becomes boring. I think it just becomes, a lot of people are like, it doesn't go over their head because it's not that complicated. I think what happens is they just get, maybe bored would be the right word. As you're explaining these things, they're like, yeah. Okay, cool. You know, they don't understand that if we didn't have all these things, you would be getting corn out of your own field. Probably your children would be, actually, so that you could actually have food. Well, we become so complacent, and then they don't realize that bad economic policy has effect on basic needs of life: food, shelter, anything that you need to be a productive human being, because it's all interchangeable.
So these are the most important charts, I think, that you don't even have to look at net wealth or anything like that. I was just trying to find what I thought was the most important thing because people are so worried about the economy. And I keep hearing Biden say two really big lies. One, you weren't here when we talked about it, but Biden is literally out there saying just in the last week that inflation was 9% when he took office. When he took office, not a year and a half into him being president or anything like that. It was actually 1.4% when he took office. The other thing he says is that wages are up. Wages are up for people. You know, the economy's doing great. The problem is that it's not true, and you can't really lie to people about that. Like, they know whether or not their wages are really up in comparison with the things that they have to buy. Yeah. So I think the absolute most important thing...
People know that they're out of money at the end of every month now.
Average hourly earnings, and we're just going to take all employees, average hourly earnings of all employees, inflation adjusted since Biden took office is minus 2.9%. Wages are down. And that's after a pretty big jump just in the last year. It was down 5% for people. It's still down 2.9%
there at the bottom.
Yeah. Oh yeah, middle of 2022, that's when inflation was the highest. It was down a little over 6% for people. And right now, it's down 2.9% for people. You can't lie to people about that. They know. They can tell. All right.
1 to 2% raise that you're getting at your salaried position doesn't do anything for you.
Especially if you're at an income level where most of your income is going for these daily necessities, and you don't have a bunch of extra income to put back for saving or whatever. Like, if most of your income is going to shelter and food and gas and things like that, you can't be lied to about this. You just know. When Trump was president, the average hourly earnings, inflation adjusted, this goes up to COVID, and then I stop it there, is at 4.26% for while Trump was president. These are the most important charts that everyone has to talk about, and Biden cannot just continue to lie about it. The fact of the matter is, wages are down, inflation adjusted, for people in America. While Trump was president, wages went up, inflation adjusted, for people in America. This doesn't count COVID, and that's actually to Trump's detriment, because it's even more when you count COVID, because the government gave out a bunch of free money and inflation went down to almost nothing because no one was buying anything and people were getting a bunch of free money. And that free money was counted in their wages. And so the number, if I would have counted COVID, would be like 7 or 8% under Trump, which people still felt. It was still part of their daily lives, but it's not fair to count that.
T-Dub makes a good point. He says, don't forget, in Biden's mind, a haircut costs 20 cents and a pot roast dinner is 15 cents. He's probably the guy that goes to the local diner and leaves $1 for a tip still.
He's still paying a nickel for a gallon of gas, you know?
What do you mean the prices are too high, man? Come on.
Now there's the other guy.
Got me a candy bar and a Coke for 5 cents.
The other guy floated a 3-term presidency over the weekend. And that's not good.
No,
so
it's not good. Because he wants to be like FDR then.
I wanted to talk to the Trump people real quick, because this is not what you should want, even if you like Trump.
16 years, almost 16 years. FDR, 16 years, almost 16 years. He was 4-term. I don't know. Are we going to be considered 3-term or 2-term? You tell me. Ronnie, what do you think? Are we 3-term or 2-term if we win? But think of it. They're going to say, wonderful. Now, he did that State of the Union the other day. He was high as a kite. So I think we should call for drug tests on the debate. Yeah?
Now, when I hear him say that...
He didn't call for a 3-term. I just listened to it.
Yeah.
He said, what would we be considered?
Now, what he actually meant by that just then, I think, after listening to it again, is he's saying that he won the 2020 election.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he's actually saying.
Yes.
And so in this clip, he is saying...
But then he says probably 2 terms.
Yeah, because technically he doesn't go down. So what he is joking about right there, from now... I mean, I listened to that beforehand, and honestly, I didn't catch it. What he's joking about right there is...
He won the 2020
He won
election.
2020, and so if he wins in 2024, wouldn't that be the third time? Wouldn't that be his third term?
Yeah.
That's what he's actually saying, which actually makes it more of a news story to me, because every single news publication that there is out there has a headline that goes like this: Trump at the NRA convention floats 3-term presidency.
No, he's asking a question. What would be considered?
Mm-hmm.
And then he says probably 2 term.
To Politico's benefit, a credit here, they said that he recently shut down the proposition of seeking a 3rd term, which is barred by the Constitution. He told Time magazine in April that he wouldn't be in favor of challenging the 22nd Amendment enacted after FDR's presidency. He said, "I wouldn't be in favor of it at all. I intend to serve 4 years and do a great job. I want to bring our country back, blah, blah, blah," all the stuff that he says. So I think actually I'm going to need the write a community note about this.
You should.
Yeah, I'm going to need the community note these people.
Yep.
That's all I brought for everyone today, because the most important news of the weekend had to do with the president of a country I don't care about dying in a helicopter crash.
Yeah.
And other than that...
So we used to be against death on this show, and now you've turned your tables.
I'm going to abstain from caring about this one. I did not call for his death. I did not wish death upon him. But now that he's dead, I'm going to say that I don't care. Now, the important thing to remember is that sometimes the next guy is worse. And while this guy sucked and was very repressive to women and protesters and all that stuff, I don't know if you guys remember, they had big protests in Iran, and they had I don't know what they call it when they forced the women to wear all the stuff. And I know one of the women got beaten, I think was killed in police custody or something like that. They had big protests.
Sharia law, basically.
And yeah, they're like specifically a religious government. It's in their constitution. And so this guy was very strict in enforcing that. The next guy doesn't automatically mean he's going to be better. He could end up being worse. But as far as I'm dying, I don't know. I don't really care. Economics is what I care about. And
helicopters go down sometimes.
It does.
And he took a risk.
He did.
And that risk did not serve him well.
He voluntarily signed up for that risk.
I've been in a helicopter before.
I have too.
It was fine.
Probably in Hawaii, just like you.
No, mine was actually the Grand Canyon.
Oh.
That was pretty cool.
Another dangerous place to do a helicopter.
That was cool,
tour.
though. I got to tell you, it was cool.
Okay, that's all we got today, Charlie. Tell them where they can go.
My favorite part of the whole helicopter ride, though, is when we took off and he played CCR.
Mine did the same thing in Hawaii.
It was fun.
Yeah.
All right, if you enjoyed today's episode, please share the show with a friend, family member, or foe. Remember, I'm doing this episode sick. That's how much I care, even when I say I don't.
Yeah.
You know, that's just me.
Are you telling people that you care?
Now, next week I won't be here again, so sorry for that. And then at the end of the month in June, I'll be gone as well.
Good.
So you're welcome. I know most people probably enjoy this show. At least one person enjoys it when I'm not here. So I do my best to not be here sometimes.
Plays went up while you were gone.
But when I'm here, even though I'm sick, I'll do the show for my country.
Do it.
That's what I'm doing it for. So share it around.
Does that mean you won't actually be here for the debate watch party on June 27th?
I don't think so, actually.
You're always traveling. Must be nice, you know?
That's your birthday, isn't it?
Must be nice. 24th is my birthday.
What? Around your birthday.
Yeah. 28th is my rebirthday.
There you go.
And you're missing that. I guess I'll get drunk instead.
With every death there is rebirth. Go to all the links in the show notes. Join gmail.com to be part of the live group and join in on the fun. You could hate on me and love on Nate or share cool stuff. And then be part of a cool community. We recently mentioned that we had one of our OG live group members passed away. And just to see this little Fed Haters Club like come together to support his family, I think is something that's cool. Unfortunate that Sam passed away. It's sad. But the fact that we have a little community that people can lean on, I think that's a cool thing. That's what being human's all about. So join up and go to all the links. Do everything I said.
If anything, it's a promise that you'll have a group of people that will mourn your death when you pass.
At the very least.
Can you really put a price tag on that? It's like a $7 insurance policy that someone will care when you die.
Yeah.
That's all you got to pay.
Exactly.
So how about that?
Do all that or don't. I don't really care. And if you do, then we'll be back again tomorrow. Hope you have a good day and a good morning, Liberty.